I'm going to introduce myself. My name is David Alford. I attend here at Westminster, and this is Joseph Stam, my partner in crime, and we've been making movies now for about 5 years. And so it started back in 2019. I worked at the Barter Theater. I know some of y'all have worked with me around there and do it. Hey, come on in. Hey, Wallace. I worked at the Barter Theater as an actor on stage for about 7 years. And during that point in time, I decided I would try to write a play. And I had wanted to write for a while and thought it would be a lot of fun. And so I sat down at my little computer one night and thought, well, they have a play writing contest at the Barter Theater. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's like a playwright festival. I thought, well, I'll write a play and see if I can get this playwright festival, get into that. It was a kind of competition thing. And so as I was writing the play, I thought, well, this is not working on stage. I thought, well, maybe it would work as a screenplay. Maybe it'd work as a movie instead, a little film. And so I thought, okay, well, I started rewriting it as a screenplay and didn't know the first thing about trying to produce a film or screenplay. Being had never done anything like it. Went to school and studied the theory of it and how things might or might not work. Yeah, grab snacks, guys, and grab drinks and help make yourself comfortable. Please do. And so I thought, well, I don't really know the first thing about filmmaking other than just the theory I had studied in school. I went to a really great film school where you graduate at the end of 4 years in mass media and you've never touched anything, but you've read a lot of books. You know, the really exciting theory textbooks are all there, but had never touched anything. So they had professionals at my school that did everything while we watched from a distance and didn't break anything. And that was our school's philosophy on students. So I didn't really learn much of that. So when it came time to shoot the film, I talked to a couple of friends who I knew in the area who had shot short films before. And through them, got some people together to shoot a short film. And at that point in time, I started casting. The film started a little 15-year-old boy who had cancer. And I decided, when I was writing the process of the story, I said, well, what would be an interesting combination? I thought, let's put two people in a room. I like to start with the premise of let's put two people in a room. And those two people have to be at odds in some way. So the problem I came up with was I have a young boy, a teenage boy, who's dying of cancer, and a hotshot medical student who's only focused on not today, not the here and now, but only on his future. And so what would these two people have to talk about if one was only focused on the future in his career and the other had no future? And so that was the premise of the story called Cross Purposes that I wrote, and really just kind of played around with that and explored it. Well, I needed to cast someone, so I knew some actors from the Barter, so I cast someone there, and I needed a 15-year-old boy. So I kind of put out a casting call through my Barter Youth Academy students, because I was directing the Barter Youth Academy at the time, so I had hundreds of students that I had worked with. And so finding a student was not particularly hard. Finding the right student was much harder. So I had actually a casting situation where I had actors come in and cast, and then I auditioned about 15, 16, 15-year-old boys and found this one who actually pulled it off better than all the rest of them. This is Joseph Stam. And he can tell you about that experience if he remembers it. I don't know. It's been a while now. He's getting old now, so he doesn't remember it. But yeah, so we went and cast the show and shot it over the course of about 6 days in Abingdon. And the story took place in a hospital. And so it was like, well, it's one of those things like, what do you do for a hospital set for your film? It's a very low budget film. We're just kind of chipping money together and a group of friends and trying to make it happen kind of thing. It's kind of ground roots thing. So how do you come up with a realistic looking hospital that doesn't look ridiculous? You don't want like a bed near your window with a pole and a CPAP machine next to it or something making it look like you're really in a hospital. We needed something that looked good. Well, my wife works at Johnston Memorial Hospital in Abingdon, and so she went in and said, can we shoot a film in your hospital? And I thought, they're never going to agree to this. No hospital's going to let us do this. And they came back to us, they said, well, this certain wing is completely closed because we have no staffing, and so you can use that wing as long as you just stay in that wing and don't make a lot of noise. So sure enough, we were given a hospital to shoot this film in, and so over a course of about 6 days, we shot the film.
Well, and you kind of forgot that it was a hospital because we all had our own wing and everything for a while, and we didn't remember that it was a hospital until we had a scene where we were yelling for nurses and yelling for help and everything. And after the first take, we were like, that was probably a little loud because someone will come running if we...
So the hospital was great. I mean, it looked real because it was real. So we were able to shoot there the majority of the scenes. There were a lot of scenes that took place in other places around town. But what we found, I don't know if this is just unique to this region or not, but if you ask people, they're generally willing to let you shoot in their places. People will give you stores. People gave us restaurants. People gave us their homes. People were just willing to be helpful. So often if you're trying to start a project like this and you want to shoot something, just ask. Just say, we need this space. Would it be possible if we came in during your off hours and used this facility? And most of the time people are like, sure, why not? It'll be fun. I'm sorry, the Bristol Hospital? What about it? Was inside Bristol Hospital? Yeah, I mean, you would think the hospital would never let you do anything like this, but you'd be surprised. You just have to be tenacious and ask. So once you get your script written and you've got your ideas together, just in your list of locations that you need, just ask around. Most of the places we've shot have never charged us a dime for anything. So that doesn't break your budget. So just ask and be tenacious. We're going to go ahead and take a look, I think, at a clip. Are we okay with clips, Isaac? Are we with other people, or are we by ourselves? We're up on live? Okay. So if we're live, welcome. I appreciate you people coming. I'm sorry we had a little delay getting started, but I think we're all up and going now. And so for those of you who are on live, thank you for being here. I know that questions are going to be asked at one point in time, and you guys are welcome to join in. We have someone here that will field your questions and ask them for us, so just type in things as you go. Let's talk about, has anyone here ever been part of making a film process? I mean, you've all been involved. I know these two up here are very active in it. You've done it as well. Is it Sam? Is that your name? Paul. I'm sorry, Paul. Paul's been involved with it. Good. Anybody else been involved? I know some of y'all with me have been involved, but good. So this is a new thing. Has anyone ever wanted to do some writing as far as either script or playwriting? Good. Okay. Are you thinking more playwriting or script writing? Script writing? Great. Okay. Well, let's talk about that process. Script writing. Gosh, there's so many ways to approach it. As far as when your process, let me put you on the spot. When your process of script writing, do you start with characters or do you start with story? Yeah, it really does, doesn't it? Okay, she said we have a character, we have a goal, and that kind of drives your plot. So finding characters that are interesting is the biggest challenge, I think. Characters are interesting because of their goals, because of what they want. A character that you write for is someone who's really fascinating because they want something, and we all understand it. I mean, if you look at characters from the Bible, I mean, these characters all wanted something. They have some goal that they're shooting for, and that drives the drama of the story and makes it happen. And so finding that want that your character has and giving them obstacles is the greatest way to start making a story and making it happen. When it comes to writing stories for us, we've written about 5 or 6 screenplays now. What do you start with, Joe, as far as when you have an idea in your head, what do you go with?
Well, that's always the hardest part, is starting. I mean, the worst thing that you can do for a screenplay is sit down with a blank page. That is death. Yeah, and it's awful. And so I try to always avoid that scenario when I'm sitting down and looking at a blank page. So, you know, a film is never one idea. I mean, it's a million ideas contributed into this thing. You know, every scene that you make is, you know, probably 1,000 ideas packed into it. So so it's just a matter of chasing those ideas and catching them when they come to you, and holding on to them for dear life. Because when you forget an idea, that's up there with staring at a blank page as far as a painful feeling. And so, you know, what I do is I'm just always trying to collect. I mean, I have, you know, hundreds of notes on my phone of just things that come to me, story ideas or character ideas of just, you know, things that come to me throughout the day or wherever I am, or if I hear something or experience something. I got to save that, you know, I got to save that for this other thing that I've been thinking about. And so you never know how things are going to morph. I mean, we've taken characters from, you know, 2 screenplays ago that never got produced and put them into current screenplays. So you never really know where your ideas are gonna go, but you always want to keep them. That's the most important thing. So for me, it's sticky notes. Like when I'm working on a project, come on in. When I'm working on a project, my office is filled with sticky notes, filled with ideas and information and research about who these people are and what their lives are like and what they would have experienced. And so, it depends what you're writing. Research is just huge for me. I love that. And so, if you're writing about someone who has cancer and has been going through chemo, you do a ton of research about what that's like, and you really get into that world, and that's kind of your leaping off point in a lot of ways. And so, to get going, to me, it's just like collecting thousands of ideas, and then it gets to a point where you know that you have enough, that you have a picnic basket that's full of food, and you're never going to eat all that food. There's not time. It would be a 10-hour screenplay if you were going to eat all that food, so to speak. But you have all of it, and so you have all of that to draw from. So when you sit down, you have a ton of ideas already, and you're never sitting down trying to force something out.
So we're going to take a look at a clip from a film, that film I was describing, the one we shot at the hospital. It's called Cross Purposes. It was a 39-minute short film, and it won. We submitted to film festivals after we completed it. It went into, I think, 13 film festivals. We submitted to 15, and it was selected. And that's what happens. If you've got a small film, you can submit it to film festivals. There's not a lot you can do with short films. People don't want them online very much. So you can submit them. They're like resumes. They're like auditions. Kind of say, like, I'm going to make this short film to show you what I can do. And so we didn't know that. So we made a long story. In our minds, it was a movie, kind of thing. So we didn't make an audition. We made the whole thing. So it's 39 minutes long, and we're not going to show the whole thing. We're going to show some clips from it. But I'll just kind of talk you through it. In this scene, that boy I was telling you about had just had a relapse. He had just collapsed, and the the doctor's medical student that's been taking care of him is there in the bedroom with him when he wakes up after having a seizure. And this is a conversation these guys have. I'm going to let you guys get the lights.
Later into the night after they've been talking and playing games together and things. So, yeah.
Gin. Again? That's the 6th time in a row.
Hey, what can I say? As the Camp Potawatomi Gin Rummy Champion 3 summers in a row, I went undefeated.
I can't believe you just said that with a straight face.
This time, winner gets the entire bag of Skittles. I'm feeling lucky.
Hey, well, thanks for staying tonight.
Yeah.
It's fun.
You really miss them, don't you?
My friends? Sure. They're great.
Come on, man. You don't have to pretend with me. Everybody gets mad when their friends ditch them.
When I was first diagnosed, they came to the hospital all the time. They had to take turns coming in groups because they weren't all allowed in at the same time. And my teacher sent balloons. My coaches sent video clips from practice. And everybody filled me in about what was happening at school. And I was missing stuff, but in a way, I wasn't, I was still included. And then basketball games started, and finals and summer vacations. They just got really busy with life and stuff.
That must have made you angry.
Sometimes, sure. But when I feel angry, I just look at the pictures on my phone and I pray for everybody in them. And it makes me feel a lot better. And it's hard not to get down when you think about how things were going to be before I got sick. I was going to be a starter on the basketball team this year. Tabitha Lowe and I were going to go to the junior prom together.
Ooh, all right.
And before this, I think she wanted to be my girlfriend.
Dude, yes.
But cancer freaks some people out. And they can't handle it. I was gonna take a driver's ed class last summer. Learn how to drive a car. What's that?
Ace of spades?
You're throwing away the ace of spades.
Yeah, I don't need it.
Well, that's funny, because neither do I. I already have one. Oh, you've been cheating! Oh, is that how you want to act?
No. There I had 3 decks.
Oh, that's it, man. You're busted.
Room. Oh, thanks. I forget about this. Sorry about that. That was shot inside the actual hospital room with a 2-camera setup. And this is the only time we ever shot with a 2-camera setup. Now, you may think, well, that would probably take about 10 minutes to shoot, right? Yeah. No. That one scene took hours and hours to shoot because we had actors, one had to go over it over and over and again, and things had to work out technically and physically with all the props, and everything has to match. So we'd have a camera set up here. If Joe was the sick boy on the bed and I was the guy sitting next to him here playing cards, we'd have a camera hitting me and a camera hitting him, and we would do the dialogue, and then we'd edit back and forth. The dialogue that you saw, the shots that you saw there, were the choices that the editor made, dialing back and forth between it. And every time a card bounced, we had to reset the cards. Every time a line was dropped, we had to go back and reset it. Anything that wasn't exactly perfect with the script had to be redone, and it took hours and hours of running through it. Now, as a 15-year-old, and none of us had ever been on film before, Ryan, the guy who played the gentleman there, was an actor at the Barter. He's a stage actor, and Joe had only done theatrical work on stage with the Children's Youth Program, so neither had ever worked on film before. And so you think, well, maybe what's the difference between acting on stage and acting in front of a camera? And the question is, it's miles apart. I'll let Joe address that.
Well, the first thing that you were kind of getting into is just the continuity that you have to do. So you have to, you know, do the same movements at the same time and try to give the same performance each take that you're doing, so that they can edit them together, so that you're not in one position in one take and then they want to use, you know, a shot from another take and you're jumped to a different position. So it has to all be continuous. It all has to be consistent every time we do a take. And so I was not used to that at all, and was probably a pain to the editor. And I also, one of my fondest memories of this film was, you know, we had a whole wing to ourselves, and I was in socks the entire time. And so if you got a running start, you could slide down those like hallways. It was so much fun. But props got really mad at me because they had to keep switching out my socks because they would get dirty because I was sliding all over. And they were like, in the last shot, we saw that your socks weren't dirty, so we have to switch them out, you know. And so that was a whole thing. So yes, I learned about continuity. But no, aside from that, the difference between, you know, acting in the theater and acting on film is, you know, in the theater, you're trying to reach the audience member in the very back, like Paul. You know, I'm trying to reach him back there very theatrically, and in a scene, Paul is right here. He's the camera, and the audience is right here with you, inches from your face. And so I'm not trying to throw myself out to Paul anymore. I'm trying to keep everything inside. I'm trying to not show anything to Paul because the camera will pick it up anyway. You know, the camera, you know, will detect any lies. And so you have to be in the moment. You have to be believing what you're saying because the camera will be the truth teller there. So it's really just trying to take all of those things that you express in theater and try to keep it inside and try not to let it out, because it will anyway.
So we finished that film, and we did it with, like I say, our group of friends from Abingdon and just local people who had done it before. And we got it all finished up, and we decided, well, now what do we do with it? You know, once the film's done, it was an exciting process. At one night I was making dinner, and I said, well, there's this company called Bridgestone Media Group, and they take submissions. So I thought online. So I thought, well, I'll just submit it to them and see what they say. And they're a distribution company. What happens is when films are picked up for distribution, that company has a network of outlets all around the world that they work with, and they take their films and they'll make them available to all their network affiliates, and whoever wants it then can take your film and show it on their platform, and then they take the money and they split it with you, and they keep a lot of it, and everyone gets a little piece of the pie till the pie's little and small, and it's divided between the whole world. So we decided to let them try us. So I don't know if they'll want it. It's just a little 39-minute film. Some film festivals had liked it, and we got some awards there at the film festivals, and that was really exciting. And so they contacted us the next morning and said, yeah, we'll take it. We're like, oh, okay. So we signed a contract and gave Cross Purposes to them. And we started thinking, well, what are we going to do now? So we decided, well, let's do a full-length movie. Let's not do a little mini. Let's do a full project. And so I talked to some of the same people that were involved, and like, yeah, we'll do it again. So the next summer, it was a whole next summer before we did it. I talked to Joe after he'd finished acting in Cross Purpose, and he expressed interest in writing. And I was like, oh, I didn't know you had interest in writing. So yeah, he wants to learn how to write. So I started working with him. I said, well, here, take a scene and go write it. And he brought it back, and it was really quite good. So I incorporated it into the next film. Now, I had started writing a book on my own a year or two before, and I thought, well, maybe this story that I had thought of for a book might work as a full-length screenplay. So I started taking the book and kind of transcribing it into a script form, and the book, we ended up making a film called Found. And in that book, it's about an Appalachian boy who lives up in the mountains, has been abandoned there, and with an elderly couple who had taken care of him. They were off the grid, nowhere in society, nowhere around, and they raised this little boy as their own. But unfortunately had passed away. And so the boy was now 15, 16 and by himself, and needed a place to go. And so the police, the sheriff's department came and collected him and told him he couldn't live up there by himself. He was still a minor. He couldn't be there alone. And they took him back to the police department. And the police woman who's found him is the one that tries to bring him into her own family. And so the story becomes almost like a Mark Twainish kind of feel of a country boy who's never been in the modern world, suddenly finds himself in the modern world and not quite knowing how to fit into anything and not knowing how anything works. So there's room for comedy in that, and there's room for drama as well, too. So once the time I got the script done and got the crew back together again to work, rehired a lot of the same people, it seemed natural to let Joe play the main boy who was lost because he was about the right age and knew the character already. So he does. He plays a boy called Finch. And in the scene you're about to see is when Finch is brought back down off the mountain for the first time. The grandmother's passed away, and he's there in the police department. They've brought him into the police department. He's never ridden in a car, never seen computers, never seen phones, never did anything. All of it was very much new and different to him. So he had the challenge of playing that role. And prepping for that was an interesting experience. So when you're prepping for an acting role, and we'll keep this real short and then we'll get to the clip, but tell me how you prepped for the part.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a huge part of preparation that I done, I don't know how interested you guys are in acting specifically, yes or no? Okay. Okay, yeah. So a huge part of that for me was, finding a way to understand a lot of these characters' innermost thoughts when they weren't necessarily talking to anyone. That was true with Jamie, and that was true with Finch as well, kind of up alone on this mountain. He was keeping a lot to himself. And so a way to kind of get to understand them was just to write their journal from their perspective and kind of start at a point in their life. And that's kind of backstory work. And so you get to be creative and write some of that your own. And then, really understand where they're coming from and kind of go through those experiences with them through their journal. And so did that with Finch as well. And then, took a day or two every once in a while, and I would go, and once we got the costume, I would go out into the woods for a day or something like that and try to just throw everything off, forget everything that I know about modern life and how it works, and try to get to a place where I could feel like I was experiencing it for the first time again, because there's a lot of subconscious things that we understand about modern life that was kind of hard to unlearn for this role. And so that was kind of the challenge of just finding that headspace by myself, just me in the woods and nothing else. And then once I found that, when we're shooting, there's so much going on. There's cameras, there's lights, there's, people doing makeup, touching your hair and everything. There's so many distractions. And so you really it's really hard to stay focused the entire time. And I'm one of those actors who has to stay in it. I'm not one of those, Meryl Streeps who can just kind of snap it on and snap it off. And so what helped though is if there was a break and I really couldn't get back into character, I had that journal to go back to, and I had that headspace that I could reference, that just reading a couple lines of that to be, oh, yep, I'm back, and that's what I needed. So that was kind of nice to be able to go back to.
Great. The scene is when Finch arrives at the police department for the first time. We'll run it real quick.
His first time in the car. Won't this be fun? Hines, I need my car detailed and get CPS down here.
And get him some water and something to settle his stomach.
What is this place?
Has anybody seen Janie? Janie, where's my case file from yesterday?
I'm on it.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't be a problem, though. Yeah, I can get it for you. Yeah, okay, that's fine, I'm on.
Extension 401, please. This is Janelle Brennan. Yes, I'll hold.
Like in the middle of it.
Finch. Jeff, you got him flaming hot chips to settle his stomach?
It helps me. Hey, sorry I'm late.
Steve, I'm glad to see you. Finch, this is Steve Anderson with Child Protective Services.
Child Protective?
It's an agency designed to help young people in your situation.
My situation?
Yeah, you and I are going to go to my office. I'm going to get some information from you. Then we'll have a doctor check you out and get you assigned to a foster family.
Foster family?
Steve, this is all very new to Finch. You may need to go slowly and explain things in detail.
Of course. This is Paul Kramer. He's one of our foster parents. I need to take this.
Foster parents?
You'll need to be placed in a temporary home with a family who will look after you.
But you said that you were responsible for me.
I didn't mean me personally.
But that's what you said.
Finch, it'll be all right. I know Paul Kramer. He has a wonderful family who will make sure you have everything you need.
No. I want to go back now.
Whoa, easy.
I just need to go home.
No one's going to hurt
stop.
you. Just calm down.
Leave him alone!
I really need to go home.
Call psych. We're bringing him in right now.
He doesn't understand what you're doing.
Let go of me.
Just explain it to him, Steve!
What happened with the camera on the point of that scene? Yes, exactly. It started shaking. It started off static and fixed on a tripod, and it was in the conversation. It was just going back and forth between the two characters. Sometimes you'd see them both. Sometimes you just see one. Sometimes the others. But then once the scene started becoming disruptive, the camera started moving around, and what that did is that added a frenetic energy to the whole scene that made you feel like something was wrong and something was going wrong, and that made the whole struggle seem more dynamic than it actually was. It was really just a lot of this, really. I mean, Jesse was there. He knows. So, yeah, it was a lot of that, but it looked really violent when you did it on the camera and shook it around. Also, did you notice the use of music under there? Once he said, I thought you were taking me, a tone of music started playing underneath it. And music and sound is a huge part of filmmaking. We don't appreciate it enough, but when sound is good in film, you feel it. And when it's not there, you feel it, but you're not quite sure why it's not working, why you're not feeling things. It's because sound is a lot, and music does a whole lot. We're going to pause for just a second and take questions, because we've gotten a lot of questions online, and I apologize I haven't asked. And if you don't have any, or if you want to ask anything about the scenes or anything about how they're made or what happens, please speak up. Han, do you have a question for us?
Yes. So the questions are related to the current film that you guys are getting ready.
Uh-huh.